Welcome back to a brand new video. Today, we're going to be talking about Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens and how this could actually be his last season playing for the Ravens. But before we hop into the content of today's video, if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and drop a like on the video if you guys do enjoy it. We're on the road to 3,000 subscribers, so if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to hit that button. But with all that being said, let's hop into the video about Lamar and the Ravens. It has been quite the offseason for the Baltimore Ravens. So much drama, so many new players. It's really been a hectic time if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan. But I first want to date back to last year and kind of talk about their season, how it unfolded, and really what was the reason why they didn't have a successful year. And to start it off, it was really the injury bug that really hit them extremely hard. I mean, unprecedentedly hard. It was pretty ridiculous what the Ravens had to deal with as far as injury goes last season. The Ravens star left tackle Ronnie Stanley hurt his ankle in week 1 and only played in that game for the entire 2021 NFL season. They lost both of their starting running backs, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, before the season even began, so none of those players even suited up for the season. Their starting linebacker, Tyus Bowser, tore his Achilles, so he played in 0 games as well. Derek Wolfe missed time. He had a hip and back injury. He didn't play at all in the 2021 NFL season. Marcus Peters also tore his ACL in training camp, knocking him out for the entire year. And his partner in crime, Marlon Humphrey, only played in 12 games because he had a pectoral injury during the season, so he missed a lot of time as well. And of course, the topic of this video, Lamar Jackson, he missed several weeks as well with a bone bruise on his ankle. So it was a really tough year for the Ravens as far as injury goes. No other team dealt with the severity of injuries that the Ravens had, and it really derailed their season before it really even began. It will definitely be exciting to see these guys return and see what the Ravens roster could have looked like last year if all these players stayed healthy. I think the Ravens could have a fairly good season if some of these key guys stay healthy. Now, before we get into the contract situation with Lamar and all the moves that the Ravens made this offseason to improve their roster, I want to talk about Lamar's season last year. Lamar played in 12 games. He completed 64% of his passes for 2,882 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. And then on the ground, he also added in 767 yards and 2 touchdowns. So compared to his MVP season, Lamar definitely kind of had a down year last year, and we haven't seen him really return to that insane player that he was in 2019. But we've seen glimpses of it here and there during different games of the year. I vividly remember the Ravens playing against the Colts on Monday Night Football, where Lamar essentially had one of the best games of his career, completing 37 of 43 passes for 442 yards and 4 touchdowns. It was a ridiculous performance. The Ravens were down 16 at one point in the fourth quarter, and Lamar brought him all the way back, and it really showed shades of MVP Lamar. A couple weeks later, he did a similar thing. The Ravens were down 14 points in the fourth quarter against the Vikings, and once again, Lamar brought them all the way back, winning in overtime, and it was a very spectacular performance. Lamar did this throughout many games during the season, and it just showed his pure ability to bring his team back and play from behind, which many people questioned that his type of offense could sustain. But he did prove last season that if his team does get behind and they need him to throw the ball and get him out of the hole, Lamar's capable of doing that. But on the flip side of that, Lamar did have some pretty bad games last year. For starters, against the Browns, he threw 4 interceptions to only 1 touchdown, which was probably one of the worst games of his career. Against the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football, he was pretty much bottled up by the Fins. He had 1 touchdown in garbage time to 1 interception and pretty much couldn't get anything going all night long. So it really seemed to be kind of an up and down year for Lamar last year, and I think some of that could be attributed to his surrounding environment, all the injuries that he had to deal with. But this type of season ending with an injury as well kind of brought some more questions on whether the Ravens should really spend a lot of money to bring Lamar Jackson back. The argument that Lamar Jackson and many of his supporters say is he's won an MVP, he's been one of the most explosive and electrifying players the league has ever seen, and he's put up pretty good numbers since he's entered the NFL. He's had some postseason success. He's won a game in the playoffs. The Ravens should pay Lamar anything that he wants to keep him with the Ravens. On the flip side, people that aren't fans of Lamar or people that are skeptical of giving him that money say, well, his play style isn't really going to hold up. We've seen players like Cam Newton, we've seen players like Michael Vick, or even Robert Griffin III. They have this running around play style, and it doesn't really last that long in the NFL, and it's only a matter of time before Lamar Jackson sustains some injuries like he did last year, which makes him not able to run around as good and severely limits what he's able to do as a quarterback. Because we know Lamar isn't going to consistently stand in the pocket as a pure pocket passer and dot you up the entire field. There are points in the game, or maybe specific games, where Lamar was a pretty consistent passer purely from the pocket. But if we go over Lamar's entire career and we go off of an entire season of work, Lamar's play style is based off getting out of the pocket, making things out of nothing, and really excelling off of broken plays. When he seems to struggle, it's when teams keep him in the pocket, they make him go through several reads, and then make him throw a tough, accurate pass, and he struggles to do that consistently, and that's what kind of scares some people that aren't big supporters of Lamar. So those are kind of the arguments of why people are skeptical to pay him versus people that really want to pay Lamar. And Lamar Jackson doesn't even have an NFL agent. He wants to kind of negotiate his contract by himself. He doesn't want to have anybody else kind of deal with his money, deal with his business. Lamar and his family are really the ones that are negotiating his deal. I think that's his decision. He should be able to do whatever he wants as far as having an agent or not having an agent. And we'll just see if it works out in his favor. But that has been kind of a cause of controversy over the past year. Some people think that Lamar doesn't really know what he's doing properly. He won't be able to negotiate a correct deal. Maybe he's asking for a little bit too much money and he doesn't really know how to work things out with the Ravens. But it's a very interesting situation and it doesn't really seem to have been improving. Lamar hasn't really been in communication with the Ravens about a contract. It's kind of reported that he wants to wait until the end of the season to actually start getting deep into those talks with the Ravens. And due to him kind of putting off the contract, some people believe that Lamar may be on his way out of Baltimore. To start off, CBS Sports' Jason Lockenfora says the most likely scenario is Jackson playing out this season and then playing 2023 on the franchise tag. In NFL circles, it's kind of known that the franchise tag is not really a good thing. You basically get a year of guaranteed money, but you get no long-term security. And for a player that takes a lot of hits like Lamar does, it would probably be in his best interest to not play on that tag. But once again, he has no option whether or not to play on it unless he wants to sit out, not play, lose out on money like Le'Veon Bell did a few years back, which didn't really turn out well for him. But if the Ravens and Lamar aren't able to come to a conclusion on the contract, and the Ravens are comfortable with just letting Lamar walk, which I would find highly unlikely, then they would be forced to put their franchise tag on him and he would have to play out at least a year, maybe even two if they still can't get contract negotiations going. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I kind of want to focus on the chance that Lamar doesn't make his way back to Baltimore, that they kind of let him walk. I know it sounds crazy, but if the Ravens could maybe franchise tag him and then trade him to another team that will be willing to give him a long-term contract, get some capital back for him, I could definitely see the Ravens maybe considering that, depending on how this next year plays out. A pretty criticized media member, Mike Florio, he had an interesting proposal when he went on the Rich Eisen show. It basically started when the Miami Dolphins could have an interesting quarterback situation by 2023, with former Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa likely under pressure entering the season based on the team's offensive and coaching additions. A change might be necessary next in 2023. Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio had a theory when he joined the Rich Eisen show. When asked about Tagovailoa, and once again, the possibility of Tom Brady going to Miami, Florio pivoted and discussed Lamar Jackson amid his contract talks with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this may seem crazy, but the Dolphins do have some pretty good capital if things don't work out with Tua. Let's just say for the sake of argument that they don't. The Dolphins have 2 first-round picks next year. They have a second-round pick, and they have 2 third-rounders that could all be packaged to trade for a quarterback like Lamar. And maybe they even package in Tua if the Ravens maybe see potential in him still. That's just a possible trade that could involve those pieces if things don't really work out for Lamar in Baltimore the next offseason or even during the season. If Lamar has another down year where he doesn't really put up great numbers, he kind of struggles to stay consistent, and then he ends the year with another injury, it's not really out of the realm of possibility, in my opinion, that Lamar isn't on the Ravens come next year. The Ravens have a very, very smart organization and front office, and if they don't see the value in keeping Lamar and paying him a boatload of money, they're really not going to do it. They're really one of the best organizations in football. If they think they're better off flipping Lamar for more capital and trying to make things work with a different quarterback, that's the route that they will go. But I just don't think the Ravens will risk losing out on a borderline top 10 quarterback. It's so hard to get good quarterbacks in this league. It would just be a huge roll of the dice for the Ravens and try to get another quarterback at Lamar Jackson's caliber. Due to these contract situations kind of stalling, Lamar has not showed up to the OTA activities. And Harbaugh was asked about it and he said, "Yeah, we've been down this road many times. I'll just let Lamar speak for himself. It's for him to talk about. You can ask him." The Ravens general manager was also asked about Lamar and he said, "We're excited about Lamar Jackson. He's been working quite a bit out in California and down in Florida. We talk to him all the time. We check in with him all the time. We talk to other players. I believe, and I think Coach John Harbaugh feels this way, that we are poised to have a great year on offense. Another report about his contract from La Canfora said, if you are under the impression that Jackson is some naive, out of his depth, disengaged vessel in terms of his contract, you would be incorrect. Numerous sources close to the situation indicated he is quite well versed in the NFL quarterback financial landscape, and league sources have also indicated the Ravens have never presented an offer in the stratosphere of the $40 to $45 million per year that other top quarterbacks have secured, instead focusing on long-term deals, 5 years or more, closer to $35 million a year. In Lamar's head, he's like, I've won an MVP. I've accomplished more than, let's say, Josh Allen or Dak Prescott, who have over $40 million a year contracts. Why don't I deserve one of those? And that's kind of the struggle for the Ravens right now. They're not willing to cross that $40 million threshold. So are the Ravens going to break and end up folding, giving him that contract? Is Lamar just going to stay packed on that number, stay there until the Ravens get there? And if they don't, then they go their separate ways. We'll have to see how this plays out, but it is a very interesting scenario and topic that Lamar Jackson has a real possibility of not being a Baltimore Raven come the near future. As far as this season goes for the Ravens, I think that they could have a very successful year. They had one of the best drafts out of any team in the NFL. Their first pick was All-American Kyle Hamilton. He was one of the best players in all of college football. He kind of fell in the draft due to his, measurables at the combine. He ran a pretty slow 40. I'm one of those people that don't really care about your measurables. If you can play football, you can play. So I think Kyle Hamilton was a really good pick. Then they also took the best center in the draft with Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa. He will help out that offensive line, which kind of struggled last year. And then in the second round, they took David Ojabo from Michigan. He tore his Achilles during pre-draft workouts, but he was actually supposed to be a first-round pick. So they got a pretty good player. He may not play this year, or if he does, it'll be towards the end of the season. But once he returns and comes back, Ojabo will be a very good player if he can return to his normal self. So how did they acquire their pick for Tyler Linderbaum? Well, they traded Marquise Hollywood Brown to the Arizona Cardinals for the 23rd overall pick in the draft. The Ravens also sent a third-round pick to the Cardinals as part of the trade. The Ravens then traded down a couple spots and picked up Linderbaum to help out their offensive line, which was ranked 21st by Pro Football Focus last year and really struggled to keep the pocket clean throughout the season. The Ravens relatively stayed quiet during free agency, but they had two pretty big splash signings. They brought in Morgan Moses to a very affordable 3-year, $15 million contract. He will most likely be their new starting right tackle, and I think that's a great deal for Moses. He's been a very solid player the last couple years with the Jets. He will slide in a right tackle now, help out that offensive line, which is now going to get back their star left tackle, Ronnie Stanley. Now they have a new starting center who has a lot of potential, who's going to be pretty good right away. And now Morgan Moses on the right side of the line. The Ravens offensive line is going to be a lot better in 2022. And then their biggest signing of the offseason was bringing in Marcus Williams on a 5-year, $70 million contract, which has $37 million guaranteed. He will now pair with Kyle Hamilton, who I think will kind of be used as a hybrid. He'll also play in the box, maybe do some special things for the Ravens. But the Ravens definitely improved the roster a lot this offseason. I'll be really interested to see what they're able to do in a pretty good division. But I think this year is really important for Lamar Jackson. He needs to have a pretty good year for the Ravens, stay healthy, and probably bring them to the playoffs to get what he wants in a $40 to $45 million contract. And if he doesn't perform to the level that the Ravens expect him to, I really do think it's a possibility that Lamar will not be a Baltimore Raven in the near future. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and drop a like on the video if you guys did enjoy it. Let me know what you guys think of Lamar Jackson, if you think the Ravens should let Lamar go or if they should sign him to a big contract. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.